humor can lead us to humility, because the best thing to do probably is to laugh at yourself when you make a mistake, when you mess something up, to laugh at yourself.
Today we have a special guest to the Rosary Hour podcast. He is a viral YouTuber, and some of our listeners may know of his Pilgrim Rosary program or Concert for Life. Father David Michael Moses, welcome to the Rosary Hour podcast.
It's so good to be with you. Thank you, Milia.
Well, late night conversations with your brother are the best.
His YouTube videos take us through all kinds of humor. Father David Michael, can you define humor for our listeners?
Yeah, so humor is the quality that something has that makes us have some kind of a laughter as response to it.
Here we are, potato. Look at that potato deliciousness. Yeah, I should get some slow-mos. One second.
So that's the kind of the way I would see it. It elicits some kind of a absurdity in our minds, and then gives us oftentimes a physical response to it that actually makes us laugh. So humor in itself isn't necessarily a good thing. It's kind of like so many other things in life. It depends on how you use it, right? So you could use humor badly, just like you could use food badly, but you can also use it for the glory of God in a really good way. So humor is something standard in the world, but it's all about how we use it.
I wanna be like Johnny, the Annie from my head to my toes, hearing confessions all day, eating boiled potatoes, yeah.
It's potato time.
Today we'll be talking about humor and its connection to the spiritual life. How maybe our mirth and our laughter can have a connection to our devotion to God. So I'd like to ask, what is the power of visual comedy, do you think, Father David Michael?
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting question. So by visual comedy, we mean, right, not just having words being said that are funny, but actually things happening that are funny.
Here, I'm gonna be completely honest and just say I have no idea how to cook a potato. How to microwave a potato. I'm Googling that.
And I would actually say, we talk about so much of human communication is actually not verbal. It's actually in terms of how we're moving and what we're doing. And you can tell a lot about a person based on just their physical mannerisms. So I think visual comedy is a reminder to us of the fact that we are constantly communicating in many ways outside of words, right? That we're actually communicating through many other different means. And oftentimes that means things that are funny. But I would also add to that, like a lot of times we want God in our prayer. We want him to tell us exact words, like you should do this. You need to become a priest. You need to eat this today. But a lot of times, God doesn't necessarily speak to us in those ways, but I think he can speak to us in so many other ways through the things that we see at church, through the things other people say to us. So I think visual comedy is a reminder to us that we are communicating as human beings, even far beyond just verbally. And I think it's good to be reminded that sometimes that's how God wants to communicate with us as well.
So I noticed that certainly your YouTube channel, you have loads of subscribers, and you are extremely popular in what you do in terms of comedy. And I think you make a great point as to why this is a mode of communication that we have, and it can be used by God. But why do you think people are drawn to what is funny as kind of a way to accept this message?
Me and my bro, we be chilling.
Yeah, so I think primarily we're drawn to humor because it's an authentic moment of connection, right? When two people laugh together, there are very few things that you can do that make everybody have a physical response to it, right? I mean, really things you could do probably are like making somebody cry. Everybody was crying together. But rarely is everybody in the room crying at the same time. But pretty regularly, everybody in the room laughs together. Like everybody literally is like having a physical ha ha ha. It's like an interesting release of the human breath. That is happening in a unison. So humor is a form of connection. And in the end, as human beings, we are made for connection. Like we believe theologically, we were made by God for love, for relationship with God. And so I think when we laugh with someone, it's a little bit, it's kind of a taste of that connection. It's a taste of that relationship that we were made for. Sometimes it's a really good friend. Sometimes it's your family. Sometimes it's strangers in a group. Sometimes it's during a homily. Sometimes it's watching a TV show, whatever it might be. But I think it gives you a connection where we're both thinking and seeing the same thing in this moment, which for us as humans is like very, very comforting.
You are listening to the Rosary Hour podcast, a production of Travessa de Centra House Press in Porto, Portugal.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I guess this leads me to another question, which is, what is it about humor that you think leads us to this reaction of perhaps seeing something not perhaps, but obviously seeing something in less of a serious light? Oftentimes, I think we might get into this later, humor's connection to the faith and how it can properly be done. But just right now, why do you think people have this reaction to something that's humorous? Obviously it brings them together, but what is it about that particular reaction that you really like, such that you do a lot of humorous videos?
I wanna be like John, the Annie from my head to my toes, hearing confessions all day, eating boiled potatoes.
Well, we tend to laugh at something that's kind of absurd, right? That's something that's kind of crazy. Even in some cases, something that's like so absurd, it's almost sad, in some sense. We tend to laugh at what's absurd. And I think there's something healthy about that, because I would even say like the devil, the enemy, right? What he wants is fear. He wants us to be controlled. He wants us to not feel like we can do much, to feel boxed in. He wants control and fear. And what laughter does is it actually breaks us out of that fear and to say like, oh no, we don't need to be afraid. There's some crazy stuff in the world. There are crazy things that happen. That's okay. We can still have some faith and some encouragement to do what God has asked us to do. So I think laughter, the reason we find it funny is because something's a little bit absurd, kind of crazy, and our brains doesn't quite fix in our brains. And so we laugh. But I think that's a really good thing that we laugh, because it helps us to keep from being afraid. It's hard to be scared and to be laughing at the same time, right? And so Jesus calls us so often, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. So laughter can kind of help to break down that wall a little bit.
Father David Michael, in your St. John Vianney video, you say, if I wasn't a priest, I'll probably be a ninja. Is that true?
Well, you did your research. I'm impressed, Amelia. You did your research.
My garage door opener's not working in my car, so I have to do that thing where you hit the button in the garage and then you run and have to jump over the sensor. You know how it is. Yeah, I know. If I wasn't a priest, probably would be a ninja.
I don't know if I would actually have been a ninja. Who knows? Only God knows. But if he had wanted me to be a ninja, I think I would have been a pretty good ninja. Hopefully, A lot of our outfit is already kind of ninja looking, so. How was that?
He said, heaven's like driving down the highway with the doors off in the summer. Heaven's like late night conversations with your older brother.
Heaven's like worrying about something, but realizing God already fixed it. Heaven's like Whataburger after 11 when they serve honey butter chicken biscuits.
Great, thank you. You also you don't just make comedic videos, you also are very avid in music, and you've made a number of songs. In your song, That's What Heaven's Like, you draw attention to certain ideas that interrupt our distractions and so many things. So what are funny songs that have captured your attention in life, and maybe how's that kind of affected your work in that area?
Yeah. So there's a lot of good funny songs out there. One of them that comes to mind, there's I think it's a country song about, it's kind of detailed, but the guy basically, certain people married certain people in his family, so that technically he was his own grandpa. Like technically he was his own grandfather, legally speaking. And I think that definitely has stuck with me over the years. And with What Heaven's Like, I kind of talk about if you ever had like a biscuit that has like chicken in it and like honey and butter and stuff.
Heaven's like Whataburger after 11 when they serve honey butter chicken biscuits. And those are so delicious. Honey butter chicken biscuits. Can I get a witness?
I talk about that kind of being an image of heaven, which is kind of funny. Obviously, heaven is so much bigger than that. But I do think those little mental images, even if they're funny, especially in songs, can lead us to something kind of beyond us. And I think, I'm glad you asked this question, because I think music particularly is able to draw out humor. Because you could say something to someone and they might think it's not that funny, but if you sing it, for some reason, it's a little bit funnier. So kind of similarly to what we were saying before, music is able to break down, I think, fear and barriers in kind of a unique way, because it, again, connects us to somebody. I saw a study recently that showed that if somebody is telling a story in a group of people, if the story is, relatively intense, that the heartbeat of the people in the room starts to sync up. Like their hearts are beating at the same time as they listen to the cadence of the story. And Jesus was, all about telling stories. So much of scripture is him telling parables and that kind of thing. And I think there's a value, same way with music, that it's telling us a story that is unifying us on a psychological level, but even on a physiological, biological level, it's unifying us, which I think is a very positive thing for us, as a Christian community.
So I'd like to ask also about, you say, I just want to go to heaven and bring a lot of people with me. Obviously, as a priest, your goal is to be a pastor of souls and to lead your flock to virtue and to God. So specifically, we touched on before what the good effects of humor can be. But specifically, how do you see that it can help with your ministerial goals in helping souls to encounter God in a way maybe they hadn't if they hadn't watched one of your videos or listened to one of your songs?
Yeah, no, I use it pretty strategically. Almost every one of my homilies, I start with some kind of joke.
I've known Zachary and the Harvey family since I was just a little kid. Zachary's sister, Megan, and her husband, Tyler, were actually my first wedding. And actually, Megan was my first crush back in second grade. Don't worry, Tyler, I'm over her. I have been for several months now.
And the reason I do that is two things. One, it engages people. It catches them. If you start to tell a joke, people kind of want to hear the punchline, right? They want to know how it's going to end.
And Zachary and I were in the same youth group together in high school. And I actually dated this one girl in the youth group for about a month, but she broke up with me to date Zach. That's right, Zach stole my girl.
So even if they don't care about God, they don't care about the church, if you start a joke, they kind of want to know how it ends, so you have their attention. And then secondly, laughter, people laugh, ha ha ha. It makes their brains feel kind of good that they've been laughing. So it relaxes them, and they're much more easily in a state to receive whatever you're now going to give. So I think it's definitely a tool to be used. That if you just start a homily saying, in today's gospel, Jesus is challenging us to be better people and to make sacrifices. Maybe you got a kid in the crowd who's just like, okay. But if you start by saying, so a man was driving downtown and the police pulled him over, then you're kind of interested, right? Even if you don't care again about God or the church, you're kind of interested. But once you hear the joke, the punchline, you laugh, you're kind of feeling like, oh, today's a good day. I'm kind of glad I'm in this church right now. And then as a priest, you say, Jesus is calling us to sacrifice today. Then you're a little bit more open to it. So whether it's a homily or a video or a song, I think it can be extremely effective in bringing the gospel to people, which is what we're all about.
So, Father, having a sense of humor is a quality often associated with the saints. And the Rosary Hour podcast founding spiritual director, Father Anthony Gramlich, in a talk on St. Bernadette.
My name is Father Anthony Gramlich, the assistant rector. So today's talk is going to be on St. Bernadette and Lourdes.
St. Bernadette said that once a priest had given last rites to St. Bernadette. This was because she was obviously deathly sick, and she was given last rites. She was also admitted to the order, basically took the vows of the order because she wanted to be part of this order before she died. And but then, as soon as she had taken these vows, the bishop left, she unexpectedly got better. And she seemed to actually kind of anticipate this. And so after she was healed, somebody said to her, oh, you're a thief because you took these vows and you knew that you weren't going to die today. And she said, well, I may be a thief, but at least now I'm part of the order. You cannot send me away. That's just kind of a lighthearted example from St. Bernadette. I also heard a story once about Pope St. John Paul II, where he was walking into a building, and I think one of his Swiss guard, the Swiss guard told the story. The Swiss guard was standing there, and the butler walked by and accidentally elbowed him in the stomach, and so he almost like doubled over as the Pope was walking by. And the Pope, helped him up and said, it's okay, Mario, you don't have to bow. So I was wondering if you could talk about how the saints respond to other people with a different perspective, right? With a perspective of higher sanctity. And it's sometimes very helpful for humans to sort of see a matter or see even a point of faith with other eyes. With the saints, it was from more of a perspective of sanctity, but even you can achieve this, I would say, with what you do with your music and your humorous videos. What do you think is the importance of having this sort of different perspective?
Yeah. Well, one, I love those stories. St. Bernadette, I might be a thief, but I got in the order. And there's so many other good stories from the saints too. I think it was St. John the 23rd. He became the Pope. And apparently at one point he said, God knew from all eternity that I would be the Pope. Couldn't God have made me better looking? A good sense of humor, about his role, about how he looked. And then even St. John Vianney, apparently there was a petition going around from other priests, saying they were signing it, saying that they didn't think he was worthy to be a priest. And he got it. Apparently somebody accidentally gave it to him and he signed it too. Like, of course I'm not worthy of John Vianney. And then he passed it on. Like you said, like the saints had great sense of humor, which ultimately, I think you said it very well. Humor is seeing things from another perspective, right? And like we said earlier, sometimes humor is almost a tragedy. It's almost like so crazy that it would be sad if it was real. But instead of seeing it as sad, we get the chance to actually take another perspective, which ultimately is the heavenly perspective, the perspective of the saints, the perspective of God, to say, hey, whatever we're going through, it might be so hard. But from the perspective of God, then we're going to get through this, in 1,000 years, how much will this matter? My dad used to say that a lot growing up. In 1,000 years, what will be your perspective on this? Some things will matter very much in 1,000 years. Your soul, if you served God, some things won't matter that much. And if it's not going to matter that much in 1,000 years, then we probably can laugh at it today and not worry so much about it. So I think humor helps us to see what's important and what's not, what should be taken very, very seriously and focused on, and what should kind of be laughed at and forgotten in some ways. So I think the saints are a great example for us of how to view life in that way.
And just one other question I want to bring up along that line of discussion. You used situational humor and dry humor in your content, your songs. And I was wondering what factors inspire your style of humor the most, because I think also another thing you might address in your response is that it's kind of a very sort of maybe fine line people should walk when they make jokes, because obviously we want to be sure we're not making jokes about things that are sacred, or make maybe inappropriate jokes, things like that. And you do an extremely good job of just of laughing at things that should be laughed at, as you said, in a way that is productive.
There we go. Come with me today, there'll be stuff you don't want to miss. It'll be like taking spiritual supplements. I might even baptize quintuplets. Relieved to know I can finally check that off my bucket list.
So what are maybe the factors that inspire how you think of what you make, or what you choose to write a song about, something like
There'll be
that?
stuff you don't want to miss. It'll be like taking spiritual supplements. I might even baptize quintuplets.
Yeah. I mean, it's always, inspiration's very interesting, because sometimes it kind of just, it's a cloud that kind of comes and you kind of catch it at certain times, and you have to just kind of be aware of it. But for me, a lot of it comes from my family. My dad's very, very funny. He always loved telling jokes growing up. My siblings are very, very funny. And then a lot of it, my other brother priests are just, they're just really hilarious how they say stuff and how they talk. And so I'm always kind of learning from them, their perspective on things. Because like you said, humor is kind of a perspective. So I even will sometimes think, like, what would Father Chad say about this situation? What would Father Christopher say about this situation? Kind of to get in their minds a little bit. So I would encourage people, if they want to laugh more, or be inspired, like, who are they around? Who are they with? Because a lot of times the people that you're with are going to shape how you view things, and that can be very negative or very positive. So that's definitely a big part of my inspiration, I think.
Humor can be serious. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you would mean by that statement, but for me, when I hear it, I would say that humor, even though it's something funny, it often can lead us to a very deep truth. So, like, even like when I do weddings, sometimes I'll kind of joke, especially when I first got ordained, I was 25 years old. So at the wedding, I would say, like, "Hey guys, I'm about to preach to you about marriage because I'm 25, I'm celibate, and I saw a movie about it once." Meaning that, like, I'm 25, why would you be talking about marriage when you're 25? I'm celibate, I'm not even married. Why would I talk about marriage? And then I saw a movie about it once, right? Which, that's not really a very good qualification to talk about marriage. And I would say that people would laugh, but what's the truth of it? I actually am about to preach to them about marriage. And I am 25 and I am celibate and I have seen more than a movie about it. But it actually was a funny way of breaking the ice, but saying, no, I actually think that as someone who has been called by God or ordained by the church to act in the person of Christ, that I actually have something to offer you guys. And I actually hope that you'll be open to receiving what I have to offer. So it was funny, but like you're saying, Amelia, it was also serious. Like I was being serious. Like, let's actually have a serious conversation now about what a marriage should be. So I think that statement is very true.
Father David Michael, how can we define the purpose of humor in our spiritual lives?
Yeah. So I would say, like I said before, that humor can be used either for good or bad, but when it's being used for good, right, I think it helps to connect us. It helps to teach us, connects us, it brings us together. It teaches us, like I just was saying, certain jokes actually reveal very deep truths. but I think it also encourages us, right? It gives us some encouragement to keep moving forward. There's a pleasure aspect of laughing that I think is very, very positive. So just like with food, food gives us nourishment, but it also is fun to eat food with food. It's also fun to eat, and it also connects us with other people. I would say humor is very similar to that, similar to food, in that it connects, it encourages, and it teaches us, helps us to grow.
Father David Michael, do you think Jesus was funny?
I love this question, Amelia. And yes, I absolutely think Jesus was funny. In fact, I would go so far as to say, like, I know he was funny. You actually see it in scripture sometimes. One point, Jesus is telling a parable, and he's talking about not judging people. And so he says, before you take the before you take the little speck out of your neighbor's eye, and maybe they have something in their eye, before you try to pull that out, take the log out of your own eye, right? And we kind of hear that, we go, oh, okay, that's a good point. You don't judge people. But really what Jesus was saying is hilarious. That's so funny. The idea that you're trying to pull out the speck from somebody else's eye when you have a whole log sticking out of your eye. It's absurd to even have a log in your eye, right? But Jesus is trying to be absurd to show how absurd it is for us to be hypocritical, to try to fix other people when we need to really be working on ourselves.
Nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
How would they know?
So we know that Jesus was using humor in scripture. I bet the people who heard that at the time were probably dying laughing, saying, this guy is hilarious, he's saying this crazy stuff, but he's making really good points. So I absolutely think that Jesus was funny. We even sometimes see that in scriptures. So I can only imagine the kind of stuff that he was saying to the apostles and to Peter, and the way he was connecting with his mom and his blessed mother and his, Joseph. I'm sure they had lots and lots of big laughs.
What virtues can we learn from being funny or appreciating certain types of comedy?
Yeah. So I think there's many you could find there, but I think one for sure is humility, right? That humor can lead us to humility, because the best thing to do probably is to laugh at yourself when you make a mistake, when you mess something up, to laugh at yourself. Just last night, I was roller skating with the young adult group, and there was this guy. He was skating super fast, and he accidentally hit my skate, and he fell over. And I went over to him. I was like, "Are you okay?" And he looked at me, and he was like, "Are you the Pope?" And I was like, "No, I'm not the Pope. I'm just a priest." And he was fine, But humor gives us a moment. And the guy fell over. It was kind of a tough situation, but it gave us a moment to kind of connect in that way, which I think is a virtue, certainly, to that. So I think humility, especially, is something that humor can help lead us to.
Come to think of it, maybe heaven's just a little like this. Heaven's like tonight times a billion, plus even more friends. And we never have to go home, cause the party would never end. No, I don't know if I'm right. No, I don't know if I'm right. No, I don't know if I'm right. But if I had to guess, then that's where I'd say heaven's right. That's where I'd say heaven's right.
Hi, this is Father Chris Alar, the Provincial Superior of the Marian Fathers here at the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy, and it's great to be part of the Rosary Hour podcast. So the Rosary Hour podcast, they created this mini-series of talks in microcast format to create a deeper understanding of why we pray, so we can all make that prayer an even more meaningful part of our daily lives. So in this educational mini-series on the Rosary, we invite you and those with you to go on this special journey with each of our guests. So take out your notebook, grab a pillow, or just sit back and listen. This mini-series on the Rosary is an invitation for anyone dedicated to deepening the why behind our prayers. And with that intention, a chance to offer to the Mother of God a genuine desire for change of heart and return to God. Thank you and enjoy, and God bless you.
How was that?
Well, late night conversations with your brother are the best. They cut through the noise in life a little better than the rest.
Knock, knock.
And in one such conversation,
Who's there?
heaven's like driving
Interrupting cow.
with the doors off in the summer.
Interrupting cow who?
Moo!
I love it. Well done. Well done.
I am so glad you could be here for this conversation. Thank you so much for taking time to be our guest on the Rosary Hour Podcast Season 2, What Does It Mean to Be a Child of God?
How do we guide children of God, our children, to know we are loved and awaited by God's love?
Pelo sinal da Santa Cruz, livra-nos Deus, nosso Senhor, dos nossos inimigos, em nome do Pai, do Filho e do Espírito Santo. Amém.